Hello, it's George. Friday at Fat Ninja Food Forest. Time to make the pizza. My bread dough is very similar to this. We're gonna have a class. I just thought I would do a simple video to show how I do this. At this point, I don't really measure anything. I've been doing it so long. In the class, we'll go over amounts and weights and moisture, what percentage. But for now, I'm going to keep it easy and just show you what I use. I'm going to use a white flour. Sometimes I sift it. Sometimes I add a little wheat flour, what I'm in the mood for. If I make it the day before, I just go with a sourdough mix. Being I'm making it on Friday, I'm going to use a dry activated yeast, some lukewarm water. I'll stick my finger in it. If it feels warm, it's going to be too warm. You don't want it very warm at all. It'll kill the yeast. I'm going to activate that first, and we'll come back from that. So I use a teaspoon of this. Oh, I didn't have a teaspoon ready. I'm big into ishes. Use a teaspoon-ish. I'm going to stir that in. I'm going to let that set for 10 to 15 minutes, let it activate. We're going to come back and we're going to feed that, and we'll talk about that then. Okay, if you can see that, it's foamed up a bit. I'll give it another little mix. Into that, we've got the bacteria feeding, waking up. I'm going to add a teaspoon of sugar and some honey. So that's sugar to feed those yeasts that are feeding. Again, in the class, we'll measure all these things, go through amounts, different ways I do it. Done enough now that I'll make sure to emulsify, I guess it would be, that honey. Get it suspended. And use a milk product. I do 50-50 milk cream. I took that out of the fridge first to warm it up a little bit. This is the starter. You can see the starter's been fed, risen, and dropped off. So it's past prime, but it's real strong right now. Oh, am I even in the camera? It's real strong, has a real great smell right now. So I'll add that mostly for flavor, not as much for rising effect. I dump the whole thing out. You only need a tiny little bit to recolonize it, get it going. Stir that up well. So we're about two cups material there. We'll go through volume, percentages of it. So usually you do pizza by how moisture it is, what the moisture content is. Shooting for around somewhere about 65%. I do a wet dough. I will mix that differently as well. So I know these are, what are these, half cup? A half cup. I know I just go simply 1, 2, 3, that one was heaping. 4, 5. Eventually we'll do salt in ounces in the class. We'll talk about that, how much, or grams. A little more than the bread dough would be. They're very similar recipes though. Mix that in. I didn't sift this time. If I have guests or something, I want the very best pizza dough, I'll take a sifter and sift all that flour first. It's gotta be the best, right? Bigger, better, more. Sorry, I'm in a place with everything that's going on right now. We should be talking about it more. Everybody does. All right, dumping that in. Got a stand mixer, great. A little more of that starter left in there. If you don't have a stand mixer, get to it. I just go in a circle motion. I know this is probably going to be a wet dough, wetter than I normally want to make. Probably closer to a 75% moisture. Actually, it's not bad. I'm pulling it off the sides with the wet dough. As I go around there, it's stuck to my fingers. So now I've got it in a ball. I just take it and stick it in the center. I'm just folding it to the center, pinching it, folding it to the center. I'm going to work my way around it doing that for a minute here. Until it balls up real nicely. My fingers are going to get quite covered, I'll show you. Maybe I can pause and have you look and see how I do this. So I pinch and pull to the center, pinch and pull across and push it in and get it to release. Working away around the circle. You see that at all? Back it off. Tough being your own cameraman. Okay, I'm going to work this for a minute. You'll see just about how long it takes. It's balling up nicely now. Really, you can go for 5-10 minutes. We're not building gluten so much right now. It's starting to. Mostly we're just mixing those ingredients together. It's wetter. I can actually just take it and do this with it. It's not that wet right now. You can really start building that gluten, but we'll do that next time around. But you can see it's starting to ball up, so I'm there pretty early. If I wanted to go more, it'd be good for it, but we don't need to. We can also use time to build that gluten. So what I'm going to do now, set my timer for 15 minutes, come back and I'll mix it again. If there's a bunch of dough in your hands, you take a pinch of dough. This is already a little dry, so I don't want to, and get it off. Use a dough scraper. The most important thing at this time, it's not totally wrecked if you don't do it, but now we add oil. Panting. We're going to add oil. And that balls up easy, like I said. My hands are rinsed. And so we'll put some oil on top of it. Pick it up, roll around in it, cover it, and come back in 15 minutes. A good little amount. We'll call it a teaspoon and a half. I rub some on there, getting my fingers under the dough so it doesn't stick. Picking it up. Now I can roll it around in that oil, make sure it's on the whole outside. We'll come back and incorporate that in 15 minutes. See you then. Just cleaning up while I was waiting. Just putting the yeast away. And refeeding my starter. I want to mention this is just the way I do it. It could be flour, water, salt, and some form of yeast, some rising agent. It could have been just the starter or just the dried yeast is what all I've used. I use both because the starter takes a little longer. It's a longer process. I can use the yeast and do it in the same day. I'm just adding flavor with the starter. So if you don't have a starter, don't worry about it. Okay, 15 minutes. Should look a little bit smoother. Have risen some. Let's see if I can set you up having a look inside of there. That's a little better. So I'm going to pinch. My hands a little oily. Grab and pull across and push it in a little bit. I'm going to work my way around the bowl doing that. Incorporating that oil. After one time, I even take it and squeeze it sometimes just to incorporate all that oil. You're going to make a mess of your nice dough ball. Thinking, oh no, what it all went. Oh no, it's so horrible, it doesn't work. It's going to take a minute to get rid of all that messiness. Go ahead and start folding it, layering it in. It's easier for me to do flat. You get an idea what I'm doing, but it's going to really seem messy for a minute, like it doesn't want to come together because of that oil. Just keep pinching, pulling, and pushing it down onto itself. I'm really smushing it down into it. Really like you to see it. Pinching and pushing it down into it. pinching it and pushing it down into it, pinching it and pushing it down into it, working in a circle around it. You get a real good feel for it. It doesn't take long to work that into another ball. 5 minutes at most. I won't go that long. I go pretty quickly, depending on how quick you go. It goes from being it's still kind of a mess, but it's coming together. You really learn to pull it all the way across. You're stretching and pushing. You're building that gluten by that stretch, and you're pushing it down in to stick it to the other side. And already, it's forming into a pretty nice ball. Get almost all that good. What you don't want to do is I'm building a bunch of gluten. I'm really pulling and stretching it. I can do that other method where if it was wetter pulling that. What I don't want to do now is pull so much you start seeing rips and tears in the fold. So go until you feel you've got a good work. If it starts stretching, if it starts ripping, stop right there. Right now I've got a nice ball. Depending on how much energy you have, and we're making the video up, I can stop here, so you have to watch this so long. But see, I'm just working my way around. Now I've got this nice ball to work with. I'm gonna set that in there like this. Cover it again. Come back in 45 minutes, half an hour, 45 minutes. I don't mind if mine gets a little large and a little puffy. We're gonna smush it down one more time, cut it in half, put it in the fridge, and let it set until it's ready. See you in a minute. Okay, we're back. I actually set that timer for about 15 minutes more. It's warm in the house. About a full hour. Good and jiggly. We got some air bubbles in it. Could be daring and go a little more, but the longer it goes, it becomes a little harder to work. A little stickier. Clean up here first. I'm going to show how I prepare each different one now, and I'm going to dump it out of the bowl. Divide it in half. And then fold both those up, show you how I do that. Linda's going to be mad at it in the sink before I started making a video. Okay. Oh, right on time. Moisten my hands so they don't stick as much. Get the dough to free up a little bit. How it goes. If it was not a video, I'd probably go a little longer with this. But no, that's good. That's a good dough. How I feel. So I would measure this if I was doing too many. That one looks a little smaller, so I can cut a piece off, put it on there. So I get these two pieces. Still feel smaller. There's two different ways of doing it. You can fold it in like this. Keep folding it in on itself. It sticks. You can free it up. You're going to build that gluten. You're folding it in. It's going to become, you're pushing that CO2 out of it, the bubbles out of it. Going to let it rise one more time. When you're done, seal it up in the center. I'm pinching it. Do it a little more maybe. Pulling from the outside of the center. Still some air bubbles in there. But that it doesn't matter, it'd be plenty. I'm being picky here. Pinching it, closing it up. This is a pretty dry batch. I normally do it much wetter. It's gonna be more difficult, and I didn't want to show you struggling with it. Tastes the same. It's a little more bubbly. I'm going to come to class. We'll show you a few different examples. I'm not sure when we're doing that yet. So we're going to put a little flour on the bottom. In here, I wouldn't do this. I just put a touch on the top if it was too dry. Let that one set. I want to make sure they don't stick together in the refrigerator. The other way of doing this is make sure it's free. My hands are dry. Make sure the mic's working. Last time we pull to the center, pull to the center, pull to the center. Instead, I can do that a little bit, start the ball, but I flip it over and pull it, and you'll see this top, if you can see it there, kind of getting pulled underneath, and we're building pressure, building tension in that top, in the top of that loaf, top of that dough. I want it to stick a little bit so I can get it to slide underneath. There's building tension in that top. I was making that out or not. Building tension in that top. We're getting that gluten, getting that nice stretch. Rolling underneath. That's plenty. Touch of flour so it doesn't stick to the other one. Make sure it's good and sealed on the bottom. Now I'll put these in the refrigerator and let them rest for, I could leave them out. There's two ways I could do it. I'm going to put them inside of a bag, but I don't have it here. We'll get one. You can cover it with something. I put them in a plastic bag, put it in the refrigerator, and that gives me all day for it to let it set and build a little flavor. If you're in a hurry or later in the day, sometimes I don't start in time. I can just let this set for another 45 minutes or less, and it's going to be ready to go. So I would light the wood grill now, start the oven, however you're baking it, and get it ready to go. Form your pizza dough and go with it. So instead, I'm going to have this in the fridge, let it rest. We're at noon now, I believe, 11:30. So I'm going to put this right in the fridge and let it rest. I'll pull it out about a half an hour, 45 minutes beforehand. That's how we do our pizza dough. We'll have a class here at Fat Ninja real soon. Hope to see you there. Change better than a holiday and long overdue.